Hey guys, I am so excited to be with you today, and I have a guest, Kelly Johnson. Kelly is an author, she's an advocate, she is a social worker, she works with the homeless, she's a blogger. She's just a pretty amazing woman. And today we're talking about being brave. This is her brand new book that is coming out in just a couple of weeks. And you know, Kelly, in this book, as I was reading it, I saw that you redefined the word brave. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Thank you again so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. It's a privilege. And yeah, the word brave started in our house from my daughter Brooke when she was 8 or 9 years old. And she's 21 now, so this is a couple of years ago. She was having a really rough day, and I was trying to figure out how to help her get to the other side of her worries and fears and anxiety and just general fussiness. And I was at the end of my mommy bag of tricks and just couldn't figure out how to help her. And I finally said, Brooke, I don't know what else to do for you. And she said, Mommy, I just need you to tell me I'm a brave soldier. And that introduced us to kind of a new way of thinking about what that word brave meant. And from then on, that became part of our family's daily parlance, that we would name each other brave, and that helped us to access that part of ourselves that was creative and resourceful and connected to God, and just sort of remind us that we had what we needed to face whatever it was that life threw at us.
Yeah, well, and what I love about that, Kelly, is that you poured into maybe a gap that she had there. You know, you are brave, you're stronger than you think. And I love the word come alongside. As you know, we've been doing the 21 life changing invitations as you walk with Jesus. And on day 20, which is the day that this is going to show up on the blog, uh, that is a day that there were some friends that really got brave on the behalf of somebody else. And they broke some cultural taboos, they broke some cultural traditions, and they gathered together to make sure that this friend received what they needed. And so you talk about the power of community and being brave. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. One of the things as this word brave became a part of our vocabulary, I started talking with my friends about that. And it was interesting that every time that I would say to a friend, gosh, you're just so brave, and I would call that out in them, many times, particularly women, would get big tears in their eyes because they didn't see themselves that way. And so part of it is that coming alongside, as we talked about, someone and seeing something in them that they maybe for whatever reason don't see in themselves. And part of what I've learned about being brave in community, I learned at the homeless center that I work at, the homeless shelter, and seeing those people who are in the most vulnerable situations in their life, and yet when they reach out for help and somebody comes alongside of them and says, hey, I see that God-given light in you. I see what you have to offer. It really is empowering in a way that is, well, I think it's the way God made us. It just is. He wired us for community.
Yeah, and not everybody has that, and that's, I think that there's a role that we play not only in being brave ourselves, but in being brave in community, is seeing something in somebody that they may not see in themselves yet. Kelly, my story is that I grew up in a dysfunctional situation, and I grew up with a lot of words poured out over my heart and my life that absolutely branded and defined, at least in my own mind, who I was.
Yeah.
And I remember that when somebody would speak a word over my heart that was positive, I honestly didn't always know what to do with it. But thank goodness that people spoke that over me. What would you say to that person like me who's listening saying, I have never seen myself as brave? What would you say to that person who's really never heard that word spoken over them?
One of the things about building that kind of a safe community is being that kind of safe community for other people. And I find that within the context, I do these retreats for women, and one of the things that we talk about in there is being the kind of compassionate, loving, safe affirming, encouraging, noticing those things in other people, and starting to get into those habits of saying those things out loud. And what we find, or at least this has been the experience for me and my friends, is that as we become that kind of person that we need, those people are drawn to us. We bring that out in other people when we're an encourager. And so that's maybe the first step, is giving that to other people.
Yeah, that's a powerful step. And I think that as we begin to speak this into the hearts of other people, that we begin to see it in our own lives, at exactly what you're saying. Well, you kind of spell out the word brave. There's some words that you take from that help us understand what brave looks like. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the our theme verse for the whole book is 2 Timothy 1:7, where Paul is talking to his spiritual son Timothy, and he says, "For we've not been given a spirit of fear or timidity, but a spirit of power, love, and self-discipline." And within that context, we break down the power, love, and self-discipline by looking at brave with that acronym. So bold and resilient are the first two. And then in the area of love and community, like what we're talking about, we talk about being authentic and being vulnerable. And then those last two were sort of the action words, the how do we then step into this new way of being. And we talk about being engaged and empowered. And we throw that extra E in because as followers of Jesus, we have a Holy Spirit within us to empower us in a way that gives us that extra bit of brave.
It does. Well, and as we close this out, these always go so fast. I know you mentioned it just a moment ago that you have volunteered at a homeless shelter for 10 years and in a lot of different capacities. Mm-hmm. And so you have come to know these beautiful guests that come through the shelter as some as friends and some as, what would you say that the one thing that you've learned from being brave alongside them in kind of the hardest place of their life?
I think the number one thing that I learned there, and then as I practice it out in the rest of my community, I've had confirmed over and over, is the power of me too. It's when we come alongside anyone, whether it be a guest or a volunteer or staff at the homeless shelter or my neighbor that lives down the street, when we share from our heart in a vulnerable, authentic way, and we say, here's what I'm struggling with, and somebody says, you know what, me too, that all of a sudden our burden doesn't feel nearly as heavy. Our problem in front of us doesn't seem nearly as insurmountable. God doesn't seem so far away because of that power of me too. So I think that really is what we're talking about here in terms of how community makes us brave.
Right. So our invitation is to be brave together. And I really think this is a book that you need to go and pre-order right now. Christmas is coming up. These would be great gifts for people that you love, or maybe somebody who's just saying, you know what, I want to be brave. And I don't want to just be brave by myself. I want to be brave in a way that it transforms the world around me, maybe the world down the street, the world in the neighborhood market, just wherever God allows me to be brave. So how can they get a hold of this book?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's available right now for pre-order on most of the places that you can order books online. So christianbooks.com, Amazon, those kind of things. You can also go to my website, kellyivjohnson.com, and there's a link there that can show you all the different places where you can find it. So
Kelly, thank you. This has been good. And I just hope that people will look you up, and your blog link is what?
It's kellyivjohnson.com, and Ivy's with a I-V-E-Y. So
I just wanted to say that one more time to make
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank
you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you at Living Free Together Ministries again. And we'll have another conversation coming up. But for today, it's been with Kelly Johnson, Being Brave, Go Buy the Book.